Krishna, divine consciousness. Now, what got me questioning and things like that was, there's been various theologies about Jesus. Now, what happened between the years of 12 to 30, presuming that he physically existed. I personally believe that he would have existed, but it's not the same as the person in the Bible. I'm not saying that they're the same, but let's say, because imagine if they started making all these myths about Bob Marley, right now. If that was to happen now, this is what was happening. If you're going by the timeline, according to what the Bible says, it would have been about now that there'd be people telling, writing the books about Jesus. But it's about, in this case, it'll be like, okay, if someone started writing books about Bob Marley now, you know what I mean? So I do think that Jesus existed. I just don't think he's the same person as he was in the Bible. They took in 4, but there's irrefutable evidence that there was at least 30, and that's the ones that have become widespread. Everybody knows that they existed. Then there's the other ones. There's like another 100 or so where, hey, did those Gospels exist? It's a debate. Were they written later on, or were they written earlier on, like 20 years earlier? So it was only like 20 or 30 years after Jesus died, or according to the Bible. And it's, how come all those Gospels didn't get put in the Bible? So what is truth, And when Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life, no man can come to the Father except through me, that's one-dimensional. See, if I was born and raised in India, if I was born and raised in other countries where Christianity is not the main religion, and then you didn't hear about it until you heard the name when you were a teenager, but you knew nothing about it, you weren't taught anything, and so you were pretty firm in your ways about following the belief you were raised on. But however, you get to your mid to late teens and you're questioning all that, how you perceive it, and then later on, you question by looking at all these other things, right? I was always looking at things, but because my life was based around Christianity, mixture of Christianity as well as Māori tanga and Scottish culture. But if the Māori culture and the Scottish culture if they wanted me to do things that were strictly forbidden according to the Bible, that's where the Christianity would take over. Because that's just, and I got to my 20s and it was like, no, my life is not based upon a lie. It's not based upon this and that. And then I came to the conclusion in my late 20s that my life was based on a lie. But then you do more study, you come to the realization that actually, no, it was one manifestation of the truth, the universal truth. It's one manifestation. So, and because the reason why I say that is because I wouldn't have said that when I was younger, but that's because I was born and raised as a Christian. And if you've gone through all these tough things and all this type of stuff, and your faith in your belief system is one of the like it was the faith in the belief system as well as knowing that if I put the hard work in, my life here on this earth will get better as well. So it was a mixture of those two things that got me through my hard times. And when I had people, yeah, I was always putting in more effort, but that's all right. I don't do that now, and I believe that I know that because there has been times throughout my life where I had friends that were putting in the same amount of effort as me, and some of them actually, there was a very select few that have actually lasted years. And we don't contact now. They lasted years, and there was a friendship I had for about 7 years, and then after that it was just like I was clinging on to. I was putting in all the effort, but for the first 7 years it was, well, at least 4 years, for 4 or 5 years it was 50-50, and then the next 2 years was more like 65% on my end and 35 on theirs, as in like reaching out to them, trying to start things. And then after that, when we got to the 7 year mark, it was like I was putting in 100% of the effort, or like 95, 97, and I was just clinging on for old time's sake, I sometimes forget. I often forget about those things when I was making those other recordings. So don't think that I haven't had friends that accepted me for who I was and it lasted years. I have. It's good to remember that, huh? Tony Phillips. Yeah. It was a rough parting, but at the same time, it's just because I was still trying to cling on, and it's just like, yeah. Things grow and grow apart sometimes, it's nothing major, but at that time, not that I did anything, I was just like, we hadn't seen each other for 2 years, and she came up and said hello. Now, for the first 4 years, I had a crush on her, but then after that, it was like, one, it had been 4 years and there's nothing that happened, and two, she had a partner by then, and then when things went really pear-shaped, she had a 5-year-old son to that partner, so can't just dissuade all the good times. Yeah, I strongly question, but then it's like, well, even if my parents aren't narcissists and that, it's just, if they don't want you to succeed at your career because it's not what they wanted you to do, it's pretty wrong. Yeah, you know what I mean? So let's just leave it at that. With parents, I was going to say another thing, I've said it 100 times before. So here's the thing. Krishna. He is another manifestation of the divine, and I used to get annoyed about that when I was younger, because no, there was only one way, because to prove that there was more than one manifestation of what the divine is would be to prove that there's flaws within the belief system that gave me strength to overcome everything I ever came growing up. Being autistic, being ADHD, and not knowing I had autism and ADHD, being of mixed ethnicity. People say, "Oh, you're trying to figure it out because you've got mixed ethnicity, you've got different Polynesian blood in you as well as different European blood, and go back further, probably more. But that's just going back to my grandparents, my great great grandparents. If you go back to my great 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 grandparents, I've got Tahitian, Maori, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, English, and French. But if you go to my great great grandparents, it's Scottish, Irish, English, Welsh, Māori.